So is it going to be vastly disturbing if I drink a kombucha while we're doing this?
Only if you tell me what it is.
What kombucha is, or what kind he is drinking? I've never tried kombucha yet.
Oh, you should.
I hear it's quite the deal, though.
Yeah.
No, seriously, what is it? I've heard that.
It's like
it's
some fermented thing.
Tea.
Oh.
See, John and I drink different fermented things.
The ingredients on this one are sparkling water, kombucha culture, which is filtered water, black tea extract, green tea extract, natural flavor, cane sugar, filtered water, tart cherry juice, concentrate, bacillus coagulans, lactose,
it coagulates?
MPCC
I love bacillus coagulans.
So yeah, it's got it's basically like it's what yogurt is to milk, as kombucha is to tea,
as Gandhi is to India.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't sound like an alcoholic beverage at all.
I think you should spike it.
Yeah, that's just what I need.
So anyway, we haven't even. My goodness.
That was called a cold intro, Phil.
Oh, okay.
Well, who are we talking to? Eric.
Hey.
Eric with the C, getting older every day.
God, yes.
You're younger than us, though, I think.
I don't know. When was your last birthday, Phil?
Yeah.
John
you
and I
haven't
are
turned
50
yet, though.
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
it's
see?
just hanging out there. It'll happen soon enough.
Whippersnapper.
Yeah, you darn kids today.
Well, welcome, Eric.
Welcome, Eric. We have a guest. So
let's hope this works out better than our last two guest stars.
Wrong. You're listening to Time to Lean, and here's a song. Episode 15. Tonight's special guest, John and Phil, are joined by tonight's special guest, Eric Shipley. Good night, everybody.
Who are they?
Sean and Rob.
Oh, God. Not at the same time, please.
No.
Oh.
We can only handle one at a time.
And we do some editing, but just barely.
Some.
Okay.
So in this we may start right now. So Eric, who are you?
Who am I?
Why are you here? Why are you here?
Describe yourself.
Describe myself? What accent should I use then, lads?
I think I heard Nazi and Scottish.
His Nazi accent.
No, the German is very different, It's very
They have
clear.
ways of making you
Sounds different
podcast.
than the Scottish. And of course, there's the English too, or the French,
Anyway.
They all say "z."
That was a Nazi friend, the French
That's
Nazi.
the universal diction point. They all say "z."
You met Eric. You knew Eric before I did, so you met him like in.
I met John and both John and Jeff in 1984 at the Summer
Olympics.
Band pre-season.
Right before high school.
Yeah, it was.
Because we didn't know each other before because we went to different junior highs.
What junior high did you go to, Eric?
South.
Oh, I did too. No, I knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't think I really knew you that well then, though, but I knew of you, I think.
Yeah, actually, I met Rob before either of you. I met Rob in 1983 in Jazz Band at South, and I also knew Glenda and Lee from South.
Okay.
I think you and I must have met sometime probably later in 1984 or 1985, Phil.
I'm guessing. Did we meet during one of the camping things, or did we meet during a play thing? Or no, I wasn't in plays until my last year of high school. So.
Yeah, neither was I. I might have met you through John.
I'm sure of that, but
I just don't remember exactly
meet
when.
my cool friend Eric.
maybe it was in the hallway. The choir room was sort of close to the band room, so
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of crossover. The hangouts at the rehearsal rooms.
Yeah.
That was definitely a thing where I don't know about you, Eric, but I don't think I ever used my high school locker.
Nope.
That was assigned to me. I pretty much put all my crap in my band room storage cubby or whatever those things were.
Yeah,
I don't think we had those in choir.
Yeah, I used my official locker at Central for like the first 2 weeks of my sophomore year, and after that, it's kind of fuck it. I didn't even remember my combination.
Well, they were on the other end of the school, which in Central, if you know the building, it's very long.
Yeah.
So it was a long trek all the way down to the other lockers. And we just didn't hang out down there. They were closer to the cafeteria, but the social center was definitely the arts area.
Yeah.
There by the band room and the orchestra room and the.
No, we didn't have cubbies in choir. I used my locker. What did
you were a little more normal, which is kind of scary.
What instrument did you play?
Sax.
But you were a drum major, so that meant you were really good at the drums, right?
Nope. Although, true story, senior year, toward the end of our senior year, I was just hanging around. We didn't have band rehearsal, and the orchestra was rehearsing, and I just was just hanging around, listening, and being unobtrusive. And Bruce stopped him and said, "Hey, Eric, you want to play timpani for us? We don't have a timpani player." And I was, okay.
That would be fun.
And I'd never played timpani before, but I ended up playing timpani in the last orchestra concert for Central.
Wow, I don't remember that at all. It's funny.
Oh, that would be... Timpani's a cool instrument. I prefer the very lower instruments and voices, but that's fine.
Did you ever do the thing? The coolest thing timpanis do, I think, is they do. Those rolls are amazing, but the other thing that's cool is, and they don't get to do it very often, but they have those pedals.
Yeah.
To adjust, and you could go kind of this adjustment, and some music will actually call for the player to, press that while playing the drum, which makes a really cool effect.
Sort of like for sci-fi movies or something.
You've undoubtedly heard it, but didn't know what it was.
Twilight Zone?
Oh, I'm sure I have. No, thankfully the requirements for the piece that they were doing was minimal.
Yeah, so Eric, you kind of achieved the again, so on the social band strata, you kind of hit the top there, being drum major, or dumb ranger, as somebody called it. It was probably Rob.
It sounds like one of your dad things. Not that he would have said that about Eric.
No, I'm pretty sure it wasn't him.
It was influenced by him.
That's especially funny considering the Ranger Band experience.
Right, it's a double meaning, doesn't it?
Oh, God. Oh, man, you're bringing back a flood of memories.
I don't
That's
know
what we do here.
I don't know what... We get in the old days sometimes. But what was Ranger Band? Is that kind of like band combined with the Boy Scouts?
Or Forest Service.
You want to explain, John, or do you want me to?
I'll do a quick. So Ranger Band was this. I don't know who officially sponsored it, but it was this little group ad hoc marching band that was assembled during the summer months to perform at area parades, mostly, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. And it was made up of kids from both of the high schools and some of the junior high kids who were in it as well.
Is this a South Dakota only thing, or is Ranger Band a nationally syndicated?
I think it was a local thing. I'm sure other areas do something like that, but maybe I should have.
John, do you remember
trademarked it and
started that?
Franchising the concept?
It was Russ Metler.
Wow. Okay, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, he was the
old
band
director in Rapid
at,
City named Russell Metler.
South, when I was there in 9th grade, and he actually, about halfway through the year, he had a stroke and died. And I remember your dad, John, stepped in and...
until they could find somebody else to do it. Yeah, I
Good
don't think
Lord.
that was his bag. But the Russ Metler it was kind of a band fixture in Rapid City for a long time. He played in the symphony for a while. There's actually a player service award named after him.
I didn't know that.
They still give out, I believe. He was trombone.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, I didn't realize he founded the Ranger Band. That's interesting.
Oh, okay.
No, I wouldn't be surprised because he was doing it when I started, and
he was.
So who knows how many years he'd been doing it.
From what I heard, he was credited with feeding Stevens the players that they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Because for many years, he also the band director at West Junior High.
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that's Ranger Band. Probably where we first met each other.
Did you have nice, fun little green outfits with maybe a raccoon on an emblem or something like that, or?
It wasn't Ranger Rick Band, Phil.
You did a Robin Hood hat with a feather.
Wow.
Well, with a feather in your cap with all day long, you'll have good luck with the ladies, or that's Yankee Doodle, isn't it? Did you guys ever play Yankee Doodle?
I think you made that up.
Yankee Doodle has some weird lyrics. Oh, anyway.
The band also did, again, we played in many parades, and you wouldn't realize that so many tiny places had parades. Like, did you know that the city of Wall, South Dakota had a parade? So we would get on a bus and go out to Wall, and if you've been there, it's really not very big. And like, I think we even would repeat the route 2 or 3 times because it was so short.
That's right.
Like, 4 blocks is up. Well, let's go do it again.
Really, with what I was going to say, with Wild Drug, there you should have the animatronics, the robots. They wouldn't have needed a band. You put a quarter in.
Does Wild Drug have animatronic? They have the cowboy. That's what the cowboy orchestra that you see on the billboard.
Yeah, you put a quarter in there, and then they have a marching band down the street. They didn't need the Ranger Band.
They didn't need the Ranger Band. No. And I think Hill City had one, and that's even more ridiculous.
Yeah. You remember who ended up running that?
Oh, wasn't it Calvin?
Yeah, and he'd get so pissed because we'd be cutting up and $5. He was deducting from our pay.
We're jumping ahead in history a little bit, but
I just remember singing about him.
Calvin will probably never hear this, but in case he does, I think we've, like a few others in our high school years, we were kind of assholes. Rapid City was his first post-college teaching job.
Yeah, he was 23 when he
that's insane.
took that over.
And you guys taught him.
And we were, seniors or whatever, right? When he started.
Yeah.
That's right. Sheldon was there for our sophomore years, and then he went on to bigger, better things. But Calvin came in, and I think he just got a little bit in over his head and got pretty gung-ho about stuff, and we were kind of jerks at times.
Yeah, we were mean to him.
Yeah, there was some almost like student hazing that went on. And by the time he did Ranger Band, we had quite a bit of attitude, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially after we graduated, I mean, we didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, and in retrospect, probably it was a bad idea to have graduated seniors playing in Ranger Band. You're kind of asking for it.
It was a real bad idea.
But the whole thing was so kind of slipshod anyway. I don't think anybody cared, but he let it get under his skin, which was the mistake, I think.
Okay, but that's his age, really, a maturity level, whatever. He's 23, but didn't we leave a special package on his doorstep once?
I wonder you're going to bring that up. Get back to speaking of assholes. Yeah, I think we what started out is let's go TP Calvin's house.
I don't know. Yeah. Didn't we leave something on his porch?
We didn't ship back in, but we definitely TP'd his trees, and we did things like we put Vaseline on his windshield wipers and his door handles. He had an early Miata, and on his I think shaving cream was involved at some point, and maybe with his front door handle. I can't remember.
Calvin owned a Fiero.
Oh, a Fiero. Excuse me.
I remember that car. Yeah. What was it? Okay, so let's. Boy, we're going in the weeds here right away. So what is it with the Rapid City Central assistant band directors and the cars? So Sheldon Anderson, who was the previous one, he bought a new car every year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he
Wow.
afforded it on what they paid him, but he had like a Saab Turbo, and he had an MR2 and some other some pretty fancy cars that.
Yeah,
He also was the first person I knew in Rapid City that had a compact disc player,
that's right.
which at the time were pretty exotic, like 84-ish were
Yeah.
pretty exotic. And then Calvin, Sheldon moves away, and Calvin comes to town, and he has a Fiero, which is kind of the poor man's MR2, if you know cars very well. They're both a mid-engine 2-seat.
Was the MR2 a Mazda?
That was a Toyota.
Oh, that's right.
And they and GM kind of copied the MR2 or something like that. They're probably both knockoffs of some European sports car, but the Fiero was this weird GM car that was around for a few years. But I remember it because I don't know why. I tempted to ask him. I actually rode in it with his wife out to some state band thing or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know why I was doing that. Maybe I had something else she was going that way. It was across the state. I have a vague memory of riding in that car for a number of hours.
Wow.
My
Mrs.
Spanish teacher
Holbrook.
had a nice car too. He always had, one of my Spanish teachers in high school had what was his name? Caballero. No, that's not
Cabrera?
right. Yeah, right.
Oh, the car or the guy?
No, right. No, you were right, Eric. But he had like a Porsche or something.
It could be because they didn't have any kids, and
I don't know.
That ended pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, they had kids just as they left Rapid City. Was that it?
No, they had.
Or did they?
You remember,
when we were
Margaret
still there.
was pregnant when we had the 1987 Jazz Band Revolt. Do you remember that? It was.
Wait, is this shortly after John rode across the state with his wife?
I don't know, John.
There's a reason I blocked that out.
No,
That's terrible. No.
I was thinking about this just the
I
other
was
day.
way too awkward. Yeah.
You remember?
They love that.
we went to the. I think it was a.
Wait, start over. What?
Oh, okay. Sorry, let's
no, wait,
backtrack.
no. I'm
Eric,
sorry.
It was the spring of 1987. It was before we graduated.
A jazz
And
revolt.
we went to a jazz festival. I thought it was at BHSU at Black Hills.
Oh, yes, Black Hills State.
And Stevens went there too. And but to make a long story short, we lost. We were pissed. And then Calvin wanted us to sit in the balcony, which had no seats. So he
And
wanted
watch
to,
the winning band perform.
Well, we had to sit in the aisles, which were sticky and disgusting. And when you sat in the aisle, you couldn't see over the goddamn parapet, so you were just sitting in God knows what in your dress pants, and
And you couldn't see.
well, and we couldn't see, so we said fuck this, and we went down. We found their rec center or whatever it was, and they had pool tables, so we were playing some pool, and Calvin came down there and was displeased. And
I'd
things
forgotten
just
about that.
degenerated
That's
from there.
interesting.
I remember Clayton Southwick was all pissed too.
Ah,
But anyway,
It's funny how they let all that stuff go.
yeah. Did they really?
Well, I don't know. I see Clayton Southwick every so often, and
he never brings that up.
he doesn't bring that stuff up.
No, I mean, I'm
John, you were really an asshole. He doesn't
I'm
sound like
connected
Jimmy
with
Stewart.
with both Margaret and Calvin on Facebook, and
Yeah, of
I
course.
kind of alluded to that at one point early on, and he was totally oblivious to it. So
I think it was much a bigger deal in our minds at the time than it ever
Well,
was.
it was something about your age. That's your real formative years, and he was more worried about what kind of car he was going to have.
Probably, and if he had a kid on the way, then that's another.
well, and the thing is, Calvin is just a few months older than my older brother, so that kind of age difference wasn't something that was unusual for me. And from what Rob has said, after '87, because he was 2 years behind us, John?
Yep.
Yeah, he said by his senior year, Calvin had really started to mellow and settle into that position. So I'm sure. I mean, straight out of college, 23 years old. I mean, he's got a lot to figure out and get under his belt.
You guys probably helped him in a weird way.
Well, we like to think that, right?
Yeah.
Another thing in high school that now was theater, and I was very thankful when Eric got the role of Romeo.
Oh God.
Because I was like, I only want to play Mercutio. I don't want to play anything else. And she kept having me read from Romeo with other young ladies. And, and I was like, I don't want to read for this. But anyway, I was very thankful when Eric got the part of Romeo.
That was a lot like playing timpani in the symphony concert. I was hanging around the...
Except you were the lead.
Yeah. I was hanging around the band room, and Lisa Ruckman came in.
Why do these stories always start with you saying, I was hanging around the band room?
Oh, well, because
loitering around the music area.
He was a drum major.
Well, come on, I did. I mean, that's what we did.
No, I spent many hours being very unproductive.
Thank goodness the boys are much more productive these days, or we wouldn't have this podcast.
I wasn't going to hang around there. It smelled funny.
So anyway, I was there in the
valves.
band room. I don't remember what I was doing. Probably nothing important. And Lisa comes in and says, "Hey, I'm going to go watch the rehearsal or the tryouts for Romeo and Juliet. You want to come watch?" And I didn't have anything better to do, so yeah, whatever. What the hell? So we
like
go in there and we're
door.
watching, and the audition part was Capulet's God's Bread. It makes me mad when he's all pissed because Juliet doesn't want to marry Paris. I think it is
Copulate with Capulet.
Yeah,
never mind.
Yeah, and anyway, and I sat there and I watched these prepubescent morons, and I don't include you, or do I, Phil?
But you probably do include my brother.
Hey, my balls had dropped by then, so
Okay,
I was
all right.
singing bass. I was not prepubescent back then.
All right, we won't say any more about it. But anyway, it was God's bread. It makes me mad, and I was, oh fuck, I can do better than that. So I go down to Miss Saunders and I say, I didn't sign up ahead of time, but do you mind if I do? And she was cool with that, so I got up there and I did it. And actually, I was channeling my own dad when I was, doing the pissed off father thing. So apparently, it impressed her.
Yeah.
Now, was this the same performance that Rob, after dying, started coughing?
Yeah, that was
on
one of the
stage?
performances. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
What was Rob's character again? I forgot.
He was
he
Paris.
Paris? He was Paris. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Noble County, Paris.
And Glenda was the nurse.
Apparently, he was terrified to do the fake sword fighting with me.
Well, I would have been, but I didn't have to deal with you in that area.
You had to deal with Jeff Schillingstad.
Well, he was.
Man, there was one malevolent fuck.
Eric is a potty mouth and a communist.
he was a character.
I was just telling my voice teacher at my last lesson last Thursday. I was telling her about putting together that jazz combo, and we worked up Birdland. You remember? Mm-hmm. And we worked it up by ear. We didn't have any music, and we just listened to it ad nauseum and figured out the parts. And then we actually performed that at a jazz competition. I don't think it was, or maybe it was the same one where we had the Jazz Band Revolt. I can't remember now. But anyway, and some moronic fucking judge picked, or just ignored, the fact that, as high school age musicians, we put together a jazz combo and just learn by ear this number and pick some half-assed group. And
I had a similar experience with that with choir, with a jazz choir at Spearfish. I wonder if it was the same year. But it was we were doing Clayton Southwick was the choir director, and he would get us on some really, really difficult stuff. And he was like, "Hey, I heard you goofing around in the other room, and you were doing this trumpet sound." And I'm like, "Yeah." Where it's like, "Oh, I want you to do that for a scat solo."
Oh, cool.
And I want you to do some other, scat solo stuff because you improvise or you're a goofy guy. You could probably do it. So I was like, I don't know, because I had never done a solo before. And but I tried it, and I think we were pretty good. But we were trying something really difficult and unique. And because there is a precedent, evidently, he told me that there is a precedent for scat solos to have, humans doing instrument sounds.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'll try it. But we didn't win either. Some other group did that was doing something a lot more mainstream. And we didn't revolt and go play pool, but I was a little grumpy.
Yeah.
I didn't have to sit in the balcony though.
Yeah. I don't know. I sometimes wonder, at those competitions, both, like solo and ensemble or the jazz competitions. What the fuck are the judges really looking for? Do they care about whether or not the groups are really doing, pushing the boundaries, trying to do something new, trying to do something that's really challenging, and
It didn't seem like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, were they even aware? I'm not even sure if they knew that much.
Another thing, I did oral interp once, and I was doing Casts of Amontillado or something, and I did 2 different voices and accents and whatever, and the judge was commenting on how I was dressed or something. It was like I don't quite get what but anyway, I never did oral interp again.
What the fuck does that have to do with the oral interp?
Don't ask me.
See? It's outrageous.
I agree, but people like you and I weren't judges.
No. Anyway.
Yeah, whatever. It takes a special person to be a judge.
Or copious amounts of free time.
Okay.
So another thing we all did together was camping. I mean, I didn't go as often. I didn't go as often as you guys.
I think Eric's camping and our camp and Phil's camping were a little different.
Should we take a break before we talk about camping?
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
I could use another beverage.
Later.
Sick pay. Am I the only one here? Hello, audience. It's so nice to have you with us. I hope you like talking about band. Once I fell in love with a monkey named Fred.
So you're back, Phil.
Hi, John must be making a fancy drink.
As long as it isn't a gin and tonic. Although I think he actually likes gin. I hate it.
You don't like gin?
Oh, God, it tastes awful.
Well, it's not for everyone.
Nope.
There's a gin in Wisconsin called Death's Door. Have you ever heard of that?
Death's Door, yeah, it's from Door County up.
That's a good gin. Now maybe you still wouldn't like that, but I think that's my favorite gin.
Yeah, Door County is a peninsula that juts up into the western side of Lake Michigan.
Is that where you guys go to see the bridges? Or is that something different?
Not the bridges, the lighthouses. What they've got pretty much up and around the entire peninsula are a bunch of very small, well, they were originally fishing communities, and they still do some of that, but it's become more of a tourist draw. It's been compared to Cape Cod.
Okay, sure.
We've been up there dozens of times.
Oh, I've seen the pictures.
Oh, yeah.
No laughing.
Yeah. What? Laughing at you? What did you make? I made a Zardoz.
Oh, wait.
No, we'll talk about that later.
What, Phil, what are you drinking tonight?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Zardoz.
Well, what's in a Zardoz?
It's four parts red leather infused vodka, 1 part pickle juice because the penis is evil, and you garnish with some chest hair.
Wow.
Whoa.
So did you use dill pickles?
I was swimming. No, you could put a big old cucumber in there. I don't care. No, I'm not drinking that. I'm drinking whiskey. What's the whiskey we like, John? I forgot.
Eagle Rare. Is that what you were drinking? I don't know.
Yes. I go through this thing where I go through trends. So on the episodes, I'm like, I drink the same thing for like 8 episodes, and John tries different things, so that's cool.
Eric, you may, if you have listened to one of our episodes, you might have noticed that we do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you used to do that during our Trek cast, too.
Oh, I did occasionally. Yeah, see, we repeat each other.
Yeah.
Did you make special drinks for the Star Trek?
No, well, sometimes I would have different cocktails.
But they're usually just green, right?
It's green.
You may not believe this, but none of the lads are 100% Scottish. Although sometimes Phil does wear a kilt. And of course, it's regimental.
What was that? What was your podcast called for that? It is still online somewhere. You should talk about it.
Oh, go ahead,
What was
John.
the name?
Sorry.
Well, let's see. It went through a couple
Trek
of permutations. TOS Rewind is the name of the official play. That's probably the closest. Yes, they are still available.
And that's where you went through every single
original series episode we reviewed.
The original series, TOS.
Yes.
And it took us, 7 to 8 years?
It was a long time.
That's longer than the series ran.
Quite a bit longer.
Well, it takes a while to coordinate schedules, especially if you had Rob involved. I can't imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was a long-term project, but we did watch them all and have a discussion and written reviews, and because Star Trek is one of all of our favorite informative TV series.
Well, and, it was really interesting doing that because after having seen them countless times before we did the rewind, I mean, I'd seen them enough that I could quote dialogue right along with it, which I think you threatened to kill me for, John.
Let's revisit that in a second, but go ahead, finish your...
That also reminds me of camping.
But, it was interesting because I'd never taken a critical look at them and really thought about, the themes and what they were talking about. Like Return of the... when I was younger...
I get choked up talking about it, too.
The connection between Return of the Archons and, critique of communism, that never occurred to me. Once we did the rewind, a lot of details came out, and so did a lot of flaws, but...
Yeah, and I thought it was really fascinating to actually go through them in broadcast order, too, including all the ones that we would normally have not bothered rewatching because they're lesser ones. Because usually the way people watch that show now is they often in the past, you would cherry pick the ones that are good that you enjoyed the most, and you would bypass the ones that were not so good.
Yeah.
And it was also interesting to me, at least, to kind of try and get an idea of what it was like to have watched them when they were first on, one at a time like that. Yeah. And how they flowed together. And of course, from all of the reading we've done about them, it hasn't... it wasn't exactly done with a plan of continuity so much, just as production realities, things like that. But
right.
So, definitely less thought put into them than there is now.
But also with you have different life experiences and you grow older in different years and you learn about other things that didn't have to do with Star Trek and you like learning about the Cold War more or whatever, and you add that.
There's so much nuance to that show that, especially if you know the time period and everything, it really adds quite a bit to it.
Well, any science fiction shows seem to, like Twilight Zone or whatever, use that kind of... I was more into Twilight Zone than Star Trek, but I liked Star Trek. But they use that format or whatever to get across these morality or these other ideas about how government should be run or whatever, different things like that, politics.
Well, and Roddenberry actually was unabashed about that. He stated up front, or at least later, that that was exactly what he wanted and intended to do. And,
they use that as a vehicle.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that it's 2020 hindsight, but it was Star Trek, original Trek, did a good job with racial issues and racial tensions, but the sexism
kissing
was just ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
I
very
mean,
dated in that way.
It's not. It doesn't hold up well in the Me Too thing, but
Yeah.
Never mind the Me Too thing. Like even
right.
the standards of 20 years ago, it does pretty poorly at.
Yeah.
oh, but Kirk, what are you gonna do?
So, to keep us on track a little bit, I am having Knob Creek single barrel rye tonight, and if single barrel is Eric, because we always have to, at least I always have to talk about booze. Talk it like you drink it. So, the single barrel, what that means is that in this case, it's from literally one barrel of the whiskey. Whereas most whiskeys you buy, if they don't say that, they are mixed together with a lot of other barrels to get a consistent flavor. And in this case, it's one of those deals where, again, you see it mainly with bourbons and ryes, and not so much with scotches. But a certain, and you can actually go to a bourbon or whatever distillery and buy an entire barrel of the stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you have the money, they'll sell you a barrel. And so sometimes an entire barrel worth of whiskey, which is
Let's
about
do that.
200 bottles.
Okay,
Oh my
well,
God.
Yeah,
let's
they're
save
huge.
up.
And what they do now is, and this is a way for individual liquor stores to distinguish themselves, is they will buy one just that they pick out.
Oh man!
And put their own name on it or whatever, and you'll see it with some of the major rye and bourbon distilleries, but they'll get one that's unique to them, and they're all just slightly different, even though they're from the same distillery. And so that's what this one is. And usually, if they're single barrel, they're a little higher proof, things like that. So they might have slightly different character than the standard bottling would.
So what's the difference between single barrel and single malt?
Well, they're completely different terms. So single malt means it is a malt whiskey from a single distillery.
Oh, okay.
So that's all that means, though. So it can be from many different barrels. It can have different ages, things like that. A single barrel means it's literally, they distill the whiskey, they put it in a barrel, and they bottle it. If it isn't mixed with anything else, that's a single barrel. Yeah.
So we've come a long way from drinking wine coolers at the camping.
Yes,
I want to talk about
nostalgic.
camping. I'm obsessed about camping.
Camping is
I only went
3-2 wine coolers.
So
Eric, you remember the time that I think we mentioned this before on the podcast, but where there was this weird gray area of drinking age law.
We were
in South Dakota.
We were
once
19.
you turned 18, you could buy
3-2
beer and all that stuff
and wine coolers. Yeah. I think we were younger than that when some of the camping episodes. I only went on a few of them, but up at Slate Creek or whatever. But I wasn't much of a camper.
Maybe we should explain what that is. So
I wasn't much of a camper.
Our friends, the Ron family, own and still have a piece of land up in the Black Hills, private area with at the time it just had a shack.
Yeah.
But now they've built a house and everything, and it's very modern.
Oh, the shack.
In those days, in our high school days, they just had a shack. You could go up there and hang out. It felt very isolated. So
it was.
A number of times we'd go up there. And we had a few times where we just drank like crazy.
Yeah.
Now the thing I'm trying to remember, because I think after we did wine coolers one year, but there was another time where I know there was hard alcohol involved.
What did you guys do? Some Everclear thing?
Well, I remember Jeff making these things he called blue velvet hammers and blue thunderstorms.
He was way ahead of his time with the different cocktails.
That was right after he came back from his first year at Stanford.
Oh, see,
So
okay.
that's almost
Where-
college. That's more a college area.
I love telling this story because after we graduated, we went up there, and Jeff did a list of who was going to bring everything, and he specified in 10 or 12-point bold, no alcohol or no alcoholic drinks, and he went as far as John. You swiped a bottle of, I think it was whiskey.
Oh, I brought whatever. It was probably scotch.
From
My
your
dad's
dad.
liquor cabinet.
And then you remember what Jeff did? He opened it up and set it on the wood burning stove overnight.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Oh,
And this was right after we graduated. And then the time that you're talking about was
The year after or something, right?
Yeah, it was like spring break after we'd all been off to the first semester of college or something like that.
I remember a few times. I was up there a couple times with you guys during high school. I remember one, we were all sitting around that little campfire thing by the shack, and we were...
Yeah, they call it the lean-to.
And we were singing and harmonizing with each other, and then I was like, well, stop. Because I heard something, and I was like... It was like coyotes or something. Remember that? Were you there that time, Eric? And the
I
coyotes
probably was, but I was probably blitzed out of my gourd, so...
I think you were, because later on in the evening, I remember I was looking at your shoes, and
They were on fire.
They were smoking, and I was like, I didn't want to say anything. I was like, this is funny. No, but eventually you woke up.
That happened to everybody. If you'd sit around this huge fire.
It wasn't just Eric.
No, it happened to me all the time too.
Your shoes started on fire every time?
Well, no, they would
You
just they would
guys
start
never learned.
smoldering.
You never learned.
Yeah.
Somebody's
But did
shoes
we,
started on fire once.
Were we waiting in the pond or something so that they were wet? Or was it smoke or was it steam?
There was
Gotten-
one time when somebody's
Foot
shoes
odor
caught
on-
on fire and they had to run into the creek to put them out because their shoes
Are you
were
sure
actually
that wasn't you, Phil?
that way. I remember watching it. I had an out of body experience. Maybe it wasn't Eric.
Speaking of that, shall we discuss nude tramming?
Oh, the
This is
tram.
taking quite the turn. We don't need to talk about Zardoz now.
Well, we have to because maybe we could do another episode, but yeah, no, the tram was the Ron Engineering. They had a kind of a tram thing across the whole valley that you would hold on to, and there was an older one. The old version was kind of dangerous
that they affectionately called the rusty wheel that fell on your head.
because if you bounced at all, it was very dangerous. No, the naked tram only happened once.
Well, what I thought was even funnier than that was when Andy decided he had to one-up you and did it right after. Oh, God.
Did he do a naked tram?
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Memory is a weird thing. Every now and then the cows would come in too, and you'd have to watch out for
Well,
them.
yeah, sometimes he had a herd of cattle on his land. That I think they were somebody else's cattle that he just rented out his land for him.
You mean Perry?
Yeah. The patriarch.
We haven't really even talked about who Eric is, other than we went to high school with him. But let's see, Eric.
I think people have an idea. He's an old high school friend.
But he also wrote a screenplay.
It was actually in 2015 that another Central alumnus, Jill Dale, contacted me, and she wanted me to read a part of a script, or well, she had. I think it was pretty much complete, but it was a script for a short, and called Omniscient, and
Yeah.
I read it and asked her, do you care how much I changed this? And she said, have at it. So I did, and I completely rewrote it. And to make a long story short, we actually got it produced and shown at the Cannes Film Festival.
Cool.
And you got to go. And
No, unfortunately I didn't.
oh, okay, you didn't get to go.
Con!
Yeah, there were only limited tickets available, and at
Okay,
that point,
okay.
it would have been difficult to
That's still
afford the
very
trip.
exciting, though. I mean, I know from talking to you that it was not a perfect experience, but still, it's not something everybody gets to do in any form.
Hollywood
No.
sounds so screwed up.
I'm certainly happy to discuss that more offline, but
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Or in another episode.
yeah, it was a really cool experience. I actually have an IMDb entry,
There you go.
which was kind of my. It all happened so fast, and the way it turned out, it was really kind of mind-boggling.
I think parts of it took a life of its own and beyond you and other people getting involved and stuff as anything within Hollywood. So that
Yeah.
could be frustrating, but
I
it
think the
was also
song
kind
for
of cool.
this episode will be about that experience.
Well, you'll have to write it. So you need to write a song about your experience writing a screenplay.
You know, and actually, I have to follow your lead, Phil. I've been dabbling in some songwriting, or at least setting poems to music and
Yeah, cool.
shit like that. And
And you're
Yeah,
taking
that's
voice lessons
yeah,
for a long time
That's
now,
really-
right?
Couple years, coming up on a couple years now.
Oh, good.
Wow.
That is so cool.
The periodic crackling sound you are hearing on Eric's track is caused because he is sitting buck naked on a bearskin rug by a roaring fire.
Actually, it has to do with a Trek reference, but in The Ultimate Computer, Kirk quotes, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by.
Yeah.
That's the actual poem is called Sea Fever, and it was by John Masefield, who was a poet laureate of England from 1930 to 1963. He beat out Rudyard Kipling for that
Wow.
post, actually. And the whole, if you like sailing or the sea or anything, you should check out that poem because it's very evocative. It's one of my favorite poems, but again, just kind of on a lark. I didn't intend to do it, but I started thinking of a melody for that, and over a course of about half an hour, I set that poem to music.
Oh, I would definitely like to hear it.
Yeah.
We'll end
It's
the
kinda fun.
episode with that.
Excuse me?
Oh, yeah. No, never mind. Just send it. I won't put it at the end of this.
So speaking
Anyway.
of big hairy people,
Zardoz.
Zardoz.
That was
So-
one of our
so-
feedback. We had to talk about Zardoz.
yeah, I mean, really, it's one of the we post a question on Facebook. What should we talk about in our next episode? And one of our listeners said Zardoz.
Who was this person? I got or is it anybody I would recognize?
It's somebody from South Dakota, but her name is Christine. Now, I don't know. I haven't met her personally yet. I know her. I
Yet.
think she's a daughter of somebody that was a friend's dad's professor at SDSU, whatever. But see what a thing that was going around, there was a meme about how hey, in 2019 this is when Zardoz was set, and
But that's actually not true.
but it isn't. I know. I was going to say that.
I was
Because-
very disappointed by that.
because Zardoz, we watched it for this, and it's set in 2293. So
Bullshit. I don't know what they were thinking of. Or is 2019 supposed to be the year that the world starts to go to shit?
Or was that 2016?
maybe that's when people started dressing like that.
So had you guys seen Zardoz before we watched it?
No.
Okay. Really? Okay.
I may have seen a couple scenes from it, but I'd never seen the whole thing. I don't believe.
I know I watched it, I at least 15 years ago when it came out on video finally. And the funny thing is, beyond the goofy costumes and Sean Connery being in it, I didn't remember a thing about it. Rewatching it now, so it was almost like I watched it for the first time, and I really tried to look past all the
70s stuff.
yeah 1973 at that.
Yeah.
The dated stuff and the goofy ass costumes and everything to try and see what it was trying to get across.
Did you What did you like it?
Some of it's very funny, actually, because it's so dated. And the costumes and some of the stylized acting are so just odd. That part's very entertaining, and
Or
Sean
lack of costuming.
Yeah, right. Sean Connery is always very entertaining. I find he has this natural screen magnetism, if you will, that carries a lot of really bad
masculinity.
And so, really, I kind of enjoyed seeing it, but I also thought it was a lot of, unrealized sci-fi ideas and things.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's actually a pretty downer of an idea. Because really, it's like this. The idea is like, well, humanity finds this way to become immortal, and ultimately they just wish for death.
Right. When given the opportunity, they take it.
They take it, and that's
because it's boring.
It's got this kind of dystopian. The future will suck, and they make this tabernacle device, which Alexa and Siri and all that stuff.
It's prescient.
Some of it's prescient. That the computer, again, Star Trek, whatever. They talk to an artificial intelligence, but ultimately they find satisfaction in either a physical, carnal, whatever, or death. That they don't have any physical sensation left. In fact, there's an entire goofy scene where they start talking about the fact that they can't get erections.
Oh, yes.
My God. I mean,
it starts out right at the beginning. It starts out with the penis is evil.
Yeah. The penis is evil. But there's this scene in the middle where they're like, Sean Connery just stands there looking kind of like, la 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 la, I'm a stud, ha ha ha.
And but then they like, what's going to stimulate him, and then he kind of looks down and.
It's really funny. There's some serious ideas in this movie that are just. Partially because of the low budget, like it just can't quite get there with the effects and
quite realize it.
Yeah, exactly.
The vision.
Its reach exceeds its grasp, if you will.
I was probably more into Frank Herbert than Star Trek, but you guys were. But he got into a lot of that immortality thing too.
The background is interesting on this movie. The director and writer is John Borman.
And producer.
And producer. He pretty much had control over this movie. So if you love it or hate it, it's him.
It's his fault.
But this director had just come off of the movie Deliverance.
Oh, wow.
So that was a huge critical and commercial success for him. And I think he could do anything he wanted, and this is what he chose to do. And so good for him for laying it all out.
Well, which he did. Well, what do you think about it, Eric? What were your thoughts?
To be perfectly honest, I kind of zoned out.
The first hour or so of it is really rough sledding.
I was still trying to figure out at the end when they had the Zardozians come in and kill all of the immortals.
The Brutals, yeah.
The Brutals, yeah. Why? Was that to satisfy their need to die?
It almost ended up like a weird cult thing where they just have this death wish. Oh my God, we're horribly unsatisfied, so here comes Sean Connery, and he's going to kill us all.
Well, I wonder what living forever is so boring.
The thing I kind of took out of it was that there's this whole natural order thing where here's the thing. They really
humanity took themselves away from that.
And there's some serious thought going on in this movie, but the problem is that they spend huge chunks of time just explaining it to you. It's all this like, okay, here's a character in a scene, and they're just like, they have to somehow find a way to just explain all the ideas literally to the audience.
It's like all exposition.
Yeah,
Well-
exactly. It's all so I didn't sense that there were almost no character development at all in a traditional sense.
Well, let me compare this then, John, to, perhaps the gold standard of science fiction movies, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, there's a
If-
scene like that. Yeah.
well, it's more than that. Because, if anything, 2001 goes in the opposite direction. They have almost no exposition whatsoever. And I appreciate 2001 as an art movie in many ways, but the problem is I never understood what the fuck was going on until I read Clark's book. I saw the movie first and then read the book. And, especially at the end, I was finally like, oh, so that's what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
So, for me, it kind of raises the question. Which is the worst sin? Too much exposition or too little?
Well, and this is almost an kind of a reaction to 2001.
Too much.
Because if you think about it, so 2001 is 1968.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was written in
74.
Yeah, so I think there's kind of a reaction to that. So almost like Borman is just going to say, well, I want to have a really interesting, trippy movie, but I have to explain it all, and so I'm going to have these actors sit there and like blah 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 blah.
When they go into the tabernacle, when Sean Connery's character goes into the tabernacle crystal thing, and that was that kind of similarity to the end of 2001. That kind of people, then you figure everything out.
Yeah, and that's the part that really doesn't work partially because the effects are really cheesy. It's just a bunch of mirrors and stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
but he was trying to get at. I think he was trying to get at the same kind of idea that they did at the end of 2001, but it didn't quite work.
Yeah, it's like he's going into another dimension. Yeah, it's a lot of it's very muddled, I think, and
Yeah.
There's only one character in the movie that I thought. Okay, let me rephrase it. The most interesting character in the movie actually is the one that has the most change, right? His friend. I can't remember the character's name, but later on he becomes a.
You mean friend?
Friend, yeah.
The guy who controls the Zardoz head.
Well, no, that was sorry.
Well, wasn't that actually Zardoz?
No, the floating godhead. We'll edit some of this. I'm trying to think. God damn it! No, his friend was at the end became an outsider. No, it wasn't called an outsider. What was it?
The old people.
The renegades. Yeah, the old people and the kind of people that John plays to for bands in his.
Oh yeah, the ones who are senile. Who are dancing around in that.
There was like the
dilapidated
renegades
disco.
There were the renegades and the apathetics. And the apathetics, they tasted a little bit of Sean Connery's sweat, and all of a sudden they weren't apathetic anymore. But anyway,
they get very they do the old ultra violence.
So that's what the United States need is some more Sean Connery sweat, and we can get out of our apathy. But but the friend guy was the most. And later on, his face is half, warped or whatever.
Because he's been aged 50 years or whatever.
But only half of it's been aged 50 years.
Why is only half of his head aged?
So is that 25%? No, but no, the guy that controlled the head, that was shit.
Okay, I thought that was the same guy.
No.
But
the friend was a different guy.
Who was the guy who had the Sharpie painted mustache?
Yeah,
I thought that was Zardoz, man.
Oh yeah, you're right. I think you're right. He called himself Zardoz, but his name was like Alan or something, or Alex.
Oh, see, I thought that was Friend.
No.
Friend was the guy who ended up half old, half young.
Half old. Okay. I thought they were the same people.
I can't figure out whether he's Lokai or Beale.
There's a scene later at the end where Alan or Alex or whatever the guy's name is, Zardoz, is with Friend, and they're talking about should we kill each other?
They die together. Actually.
Should we kill each other? Oh yes,
So Alex or whatever his name.
God damn it,
Sharpie Beard or whatever his name is. He's the one that Sean Connery shoots.
Yeah,
and he
right.
is resurrected
in the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. Who sounds like a really bad Shakespeare in the Park guy.
There were. Well, any movie that opens up with a monologue like that is.
Oh, it's so bad. That part really is horrible.
That's like the opening of. Speaking of Carol Saunders, she would talk about the opening of Dune, and how.
Oh, right. I forgot to tell you the blah 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 blah.
Oh God.
That's the worst part of the movie, actually.
Another blast past back to high school. John, do you remember? I think it was the spring concert our sophomore year.
Shit.
We did that number, and Carol Saunders did the narration over it. Do you remember that?
What number?
From Dune?
The Dune theme.
You guys did that?
Yeah. I think it was spring of... would be spring of '85. Our spring concert.
Yeah, I bet we did.
I remember hearing someone talk to me about how Carol Saunders did a much better introduction.
Yeah, that opening narration of the movie.
She probably did a much better version. I heard she did just blew it away.
Yeah, she did a very good job, as I recall. But
compared to the movie version that David Lynch did, but
Phil, did you like it?
Well, yes, but I'm not necessarily the best person to ask about these kind of things. It's not like something I would recommend to anyone, but I got a kick out of it. It was theatrical. I don't know. I got a kick out of it, the theatrical part. But see, because of reading different books by Frank Herbert, he got into this immortality thing and how about, people live for 1,000 years and whatever else. And so I kind of, I don't know. I kind of got it from that context. It's like, oh, we're liberated. We don't have to live forever. It's kind of exciting for them. But then, Sean Connery's character evidently impregnated about 12 women that went on horses somewhere else, or I don't know how.
Yeah, that part's pretty vague. I think
they're gonna start the next generation. Yeah, fine.
Right. Yeah, I think he didn't know how to end it.
I don't know what to say. I'm not gonna rate this movie like thumbs up or thumbs down.
Come on, Gene Siskel.
I got a kick out of it, and I'm not bothered by gratuitous nudity, but
okay. So let's get to that. So this
Sean Connery's boobs were all over the place.
The thing is that I will say about this movie is that there's a lot of gratuitous nudity, as you mentioned, but there's also lots. The thing is, the objectification is also aimed at Sean Connery quite a bit.
Yeah.
In what way?
So he's running around with a thong on the whole time.
Well, but also the women and some of maybe all the men. I don't know.
Yeah,
but they were all like they're really drawn to him in that.
Yeah, exactly.
He can reproduce.
So the men and the women are both attracted to him
because he can reproduce, and maybe his penis isn't so evil. I don't know, but he's very hairy. But yeah, there was kind of a bisexuality vibe going on. Maybe I'm just reading into things.
There's at least one guy in the Immortals group who was attracted to
it seems like they all
Sean
were.
Connery.
It seems like they all were, but yeah, whatever. That's fine.
That part I think was so unsubtle.
Yeah,
the whole '70s free love thing.
Yeah.
What it actually reminds me of. It reminds me of two things. One is Robert Heinlein's "Stranger in a Strange Land."
Oh, grokking.
Which also deals with immortality issues, but in a very different way.
I need to reread that.
Yeah, I haven't read it in quite a few years, but and there was a 1973 French animated sci-fi movie called Fantastic Planet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And for some reason, this movie kind of reminds me of that. And I'm not sure
I
exactly
forgot
why.
about that movie. I loved that movie, and I couldn't tell you why. But so you find a connection between this movie and that one. That's interesting.
Well, and Fantastic Planet came out in 73, and this came out in 74, so, it could have been an influence.
Well, but okay, so, right. So, in Fantastic Planet has the godlike beings, and then the more brutal-like beings also.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get it.
So
yeah, and I think it's more in terms of thematically. I think there are some crossovers. I haven't really, given this a lot of thought, but I think it's more style and the visual impact.
I see.
reminded me.
I see where you're going with that, and I like that. I like that connection. That's cool.
interesting question. Could you remake this movie today?
Yeah.
And how?
Make it a prequel. J.J. Abrams could make it a prequel.
Oh,
Well,
God.
And one of the things that I'll say about this movie that was frustrating to me is actually that, and I'm being serious here in that I think the people that made it were serious.
Yeah.
So the Sean Connery character, the Zed,
Yeah.
I feel like he walks through about half of the movie just reacting to things and not saying anything. And then all of a sudden he has lots and lots of things to say and opinions, character things that seem out of the blue.
He's given a chance.
Well, I think that character-wise, it's really sloppy. Like all they do is show this flashback scene to him in the library, discovering that he read all these books and discovered that Zardoz was the Wizard of Oz and blah blah blah.
All right, and that was like his epiphany, aha thing, and then all of a sudden,
which is pretty
he was
lame.
he was transformed.
Right. But I find that to be pretty lazy writing.
There wasn't a transition.
I tend to agree with you, John, and that just triggered another parallel or another connection to a 70s cult favorite, and that's Logan's Run.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that, it's been a while since I've watched it, but one thing that I really appreciated about that was Michael York's portrayal of Logan was really effective because he hints throughout that he has some. There are subtle hints that he questions the whole system.
Yeah.
But it's never anything concrete because it raises the question, but it seems like he's going back and forth. He's a dedicated Sandman. No, he's actually a covert rebel, but they do a very effective job of hinting at this conflict in him,
And there's more of a transition. There's more of a transition.
Yeah, and then it's not until later in the movie, when he goes over to the light side, I guess, and it's a nice piece of character development, and it's all the more impactful because they presage it to some degree, and Michael York's a good enough actor to keep the character cues subtle,
And there was some humor there.
Yeah, but to respond to your comment, John, yeah, I see what you mean because they didn't achieve that in Zardoz.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting ideas in the movie that are just not, partially due to the effects, but also due to the script, are just not realized.
I get what you're saying, but for some reason that didn't bother me as much, just because it was sort of a orgiastic sort of. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't right now tell you what the movie was about exactly, but it got into this. So the godlike characters are sort of manipulating. There's other vortexes, and at least in this one vortex that Zardoz, Alex, or whatever his name was, Alan, was manipulating. He had this kind of thing going on, but it kind of alludes to other vortexes. I think you could remake this movie and get into, kind of like they redid Westworld. I think you could get into these other vortexes. I think somebody could have a lot of fun with that, but it's really dated. I just, to put it mildly, it's very dated, but.
Well, the thing is, the first question to answer your question, John, about remaking this movie now, my first question is, why would you want to?
but we
also,
remake everything.
Yeah.
Disney Zardoz.
But the other question is, and you alluded to this, Phil, it would have to be completely different. Like, I haven't seen much of the Westworld remake. I'd actually kind of like to see it, but it really bears, other than, just, it was like the BSG reboot. It bore a resemblance to the original Battlestar Galactica because of the names and the very basic premise, but that, at that point, that's it.
You went into really different directions.
Yeah, so...
You could do that with Zardoz.
But why would you bother to...
Oh, I don't know. It's kind of a challenge.
Well, but you would have to change it so much that, whatever they were trying to accomplish
in
1974, it would have to be so radically different to be effective.
I can see all these different vortexes with all these different monster heads floating around. It could be pretty cool.
Okay.
And in some vortexes, the vagina is evil.
Whoa, man, you just blew my mind.
Yeah. I told John when we were texting about watching Zardoz that there should have been a disclaimer in the trailer that you got to drop acid before watching it.
Oh, there are movies like that where that definitely would help. But I'm kind of naturally like that, so it's okay. But no, the Westworld reboot or whatever, I've only seen a couple of them, but it does get it because Westworld was sort of I don't know what you would say. I think you could draw a parallel between Westworld original and Zardoz and the remake or reboot of Westworld and a potential reboot of Zardoz. I think that would actually that actually is a good analogy. I haven't seen Battlestar Galactica the reboot, but it was like a lot darker and stuff like that. I get gritty.
Yeah.
Well, they went in a very it was very different.
Well, you kind of have to though.
Without, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of hard to talk about it. But they, outside of the broad underlying thesis, they just went in a totally different direction. And the first two seasons, especially, were good. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending of it, but
I'm gonna cut us off here.
Okay.
Yeah,
because my family members are home.
Yeah, you got to feed them
for dinner.
See,
got the oh shit look.
No, you're still talking.
Oh, that's going to be the new sound drop that I repeat over and over again. You're still talking. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everybody, and good night.
Thank you, Easter Bunny.
Here's the song!
There he goes, the malevolent fuck. Truck nuts hanging from his pickup truck. 5'4" and full of mean. The most rapacious deuce you've ever seen. He'll whoop your ass if you're smaller than him. He's always half tanked on his coke and gin. Full of piss and vinegar, pus and snot. Vile and bile and rusty buckshot. There he goes, the malevolent fuck. Truck nuts hanging from his pickup truck. 5'4" and full of mean, the most rapacious deuce you've ever seen. Stealing candy from kids and kicking cats. He doesn't like mimes or acrobats. He figures he'll die an old incel. I figure he'll probably end up in hell. There he goes, the malevolent fuck. Truck nuts hanging from his pickup truck. 5'4" and full of mean, the most rapacious deuce you've ever seen. One night an angel came to him. He nearly spit out his Coke and Jim. The angel said words from on high, and on the table appeared an apple pie. It was just like his mama made. He thought about the debt he's left unpaid. Inside his head, an idea formed. Inside his chest, his heart, it warmed. Tomorrow will be a brand new day, but he died in his sleep. Cue the cutaway. There he goes into heaven, the malevolent fuck. Truck nuts hanging from his pickup truck. 5'4" and full of nice. It took an angel and death to thaw that ice.